the person closest to your customer needs to be listened to. So in a retail organization, the people that are working on the shop floor, but the people who are talking to your customers need to be listened to within an organization. In actual fact, leaders need to be talking to customers as well.
Welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm your host Akanksha Kulkarni, and let's begin with a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experience and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Jim Jordan is the Regional Director and Corporate Trainer at Alpha Group International. He is also an executive coach at the Marshall Goldsmith Stakeholder Center Coaching. He coaches and mentors SME CEOs and their teams who are striving to break through barriers, which could be revenue, profit, system, people, and or any combination of these that are creating a feeling of being trapped in their business. We are extremely happy and honored to have him on our interview series today. Welcome, Jim. We are thrilled to have you.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
That's great. So let's start our interview. And the first question that I would like to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit about your journey so far and, bringing you to be an executive coach?
Oh, so my journey started back in the early 70s in leadership. My background was in the retail industry. You may have heard of a company called Clark's Shoes. I went through their management training program and was very successful. So I managed a number of shops, and by the age of 24, I was running one of the shops in Oxford Street in London, and I was running the flagship store by the age of 26. Then from there, I went on to regional management at the age of 29. And my journey really started with coaching around about that time, because I was lucky enough to work with Sir John Whitmore, who came and done some work with Clark's about coaching and the culture of coaching. So he was famous for the GROW model. And I was also fortunate to be taken out of my role for 3 months to work alongside him. So I got a really in-depth understanding of coaching back in 1990, 91. So this was actually a long time ago. But what I learned from John and David Henry, who was one of his cohorts, was actually that you can take the psychology of sport and actually sort of apply it to business. And actually how then I took coaching on board for the rest of my management and leadership journey, where I was actually I helped develop a successful amount of stores. I was number one region for a number of years. And actually, more importantly to me, I produced a lot of leaders as well. And I think the process that I went through that leadership journey was I used to bring my team together a lot. And I used to make them very inclusive. I made it very inclusive of the decision making, so that they were bought into the decisions, not just being told what to do. They understood why we were doing it. So I moved on. I worked for Mulberry. It's a luxury brand in London. And I was their operations manager in London. I was there, then went on to H&B Waterstones. And 16 years ago, I took what I'd learned actually into SMEs and started working with business leaders across many different industries. In the last couple of years, I've worked with the Alpha Group, which is working with CEOs and decision makers within organizations, and working alongside them, helping build strategies to double the value of their business, and actually and look at all aspects of that business, which includes leadership as well. And part of that journey has culminated now in I'm a certified executive coach, as you mentioned, with Marshall Goldsmith. And that's about me looking at the pandemic and actually where we are now, and thinking that it's not just about business growth, it's about leadership. And actually leadership we need to harness strong leadership skills corporately, nationally, and do you know what? Everybody needs to be a leader at some level. So it's actually
Right.
sort of how we move forward from here. So my journey is continuing. I'm passionate about leadership. I've read probably everything there was to read about leadership along the journey. I've made the mistakes of leadership and I've learned from those, but I've often shared my mistakes to emphasize why other people shouldn't make the same mistakes. So it's a journey honed and leadership. I've managed teams for the last 40 years. So there's lots of things I can share.
Yeah, so you've had a long run now and you're ready to, make everyone learn from that, from your
Well,
journey
absolutely.
itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm very passionate about what I'm doing with Alpha, which is actually helping businesses grow, but also about with Marshall Goldsmith. It's really embracing and actually sort of bringing modern leadership into the workplace. And when I say modern leadership, it's actually looking at leadership not with the tools of the last century, but
Yeah.
looking at what's real and relevant now.
Yeah, right. So, the next question that I would like to ask you is there any specific advice that you would like to convey to the new age startup leaders, racing towards the finishing line?
The workforce nowadays tends to be better educated
Yeah.
than they were perhaps 30, 40 years ago initially. So I think millennials have a very much value-driven, purpose-driven approach to working for organisations. So I know for a fact that a lot of millennials will not work with or continue to work for an organisation that they don't believe in their purpose
Right.
or actually what they're about. So I think you've got to be very clear in leadership styles that you engage people's why. It's not about just telling them what to do and how to do it. It's actually about engaging their why and unlocking the force that's actually within them, the talents that are within it, people. So it's not being necessarily it's the facilitator of positivity and vision, and actually engaging more people is more important now than ever. For business owners listening to this, you've got hard skills hard results that you need to achieve. So you need to achieve profitability, you need to maximize opportunities, but actually you need how you go about that is actually as important as well. So the soft skills, the communication skills, the building and using talent, you need to engage them all in the process. So yes, you can be highly profitable, but actually but how you engage people and their purpose needs to be blended into that. So making profit isn't a bad thing. It's actually what you do with the profit that makes the difference.
Right, correct. I agree with you.
Right.
So, younger employees are shifting the definition of leadership. What's your take on that? What do you think about it?
What's my definition of leadership?
Yeah.
Oh, it's facilitating the journey of a group of people, enhancing and taking on board their skills, but having the depth and time to spend more time working on the vision and actually sort of encouraging people to see the vision with you and go with you rather than pulling them along, actually sort of getting them to sort of they should be pulling you along.
Right.
If you engage people properly, it's actually about getting them to be driving the business. In fact, I've probably done that for a number of years, which was probably seen as futuristic perhaps 20 years ago. But I used to allow my team to see the majority of the problems or the outcome that we wanted to achieve as an organization, and I get them involved in the how. Now, we didn't always go with their ideas, but actually they were aware of why we were doing it in a certain way. So as I said, it's all about their why, but it's engaging them in actually what it is that you actually need to achieve.
Yeah, and also about the transparency that needs to be there between you and your
Oh,
employees?
very much so. Very much so. And leadership now is probably more complex. I mean, there's 15 different competencies in leadership
Yeah,
um, that are addressed in Marshall Goldsmith's program. And one of them is actually about shared leadership. So shared leadership is actually not holding on to it all yourself. It's actually sort of about engaging your team. It's about communication. It's about letting go, but also letting go in a way that actually that they're still that everyone is actually sort of managing the purpose of the goal.
right. So, the next question that I would like to ask you is, from your experience of coaching and mentoring CEOs, what were the most common, hurdles that they had to cross? What were the pain points?
Oh, I'd say that the biggest pain point is letting go. So, so if a lot of people are promoted in organisations because of their technical skills.
Yeah,
So whether that's an accountant or whether that's a lawyer or whether that's um, an insurance broker, they tend to be very good at their technical skills. And then they get to a certain level, and then they're promoted into running a team.
yeah,
And when they're running that team, they've actually got these technical skills, but not necessarily the people driving skills. And they're actually very driven people, so they tend to hold on to things longer than they should do, and they don't see the benefit of sharing and engaging people within their team. They may think that their team is not capable of taking on board issues and
yeah,
actually tackling issues and delegating stuff to them. So they tend to hold on to stuff longer than they should. When they when they recognise that leadership development or developing the team is actually part of that leadership journey, it starts to ease. But they often need help with that, and that's where an executive coach can come in. Let me tell you a funny story that's just come to mind, and I mean it comes from, I told you I made mistakes. So many years ago, I was running a very, very large team in the centre of London, and it was very busy, and I was just frustrated one day, and I just said to myself, why doesn't everybody do it? Why can't they see what I see?
yeah,
And I was just, why can't, and in that moment of frustration, it was almost like a voice said to me, it's because they're not you.
yeah,
And actually all I can do is make them the best that they can be. So I need to create a great environment for them to grow. I need to give them space to grow, and I need to give them the knowledge to grow. But actually they've got to show up as well. So
yeah,
there is actually an engagement contract. Well, from that, I started to manage differently, and I asked more questions than actually sort of get given instructions. So I'd ask questions so that people could be aware of what the issue was, and got them involved in the decision making and why. And from that moment, quite frankly, I started to grow many people from within department managers into running their own stores, and store managers into uh, area managers, and area managers into regional managers. And there's one or two CEOs out there from those days as well in the retail industry who came through that process. So I became a generator of developing leadership and letting people go and follow their journey. So it was about their journey, not mine.
right. It needs to be about people. It has to be about them.
Yeah. So it's raise their awareness, give them the tools and the environment where they can thrive,
Yeah,
and actually make tough decisions along the way as well. You know, don't. I've always believed that no one got out of bed in the morning to do a bad job or to do something meaningless. But actually, it's when they get to work or when they get to an employed place, or actually not necessarily an employment, someone is there to create an environment where that they can be the best that they can be.
right.
And in that space, that's actually what I call a great leader. And when I reflect back on my career, some great leaders. I've still got some fantastic leaders in my life, and I learn from them all the time. And the one I'd say the big thing is actually that give people the room to grow
Right.
and hold them accountable too.
Right. There needs to be that exact balance of accountability as well and freedom as well.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So don't micromanage people who actually are already micromanaging themselves, because that will freak them out.
Yeah. So moving on to our next question. Given this time of remote working, how can leaders ensure that their teams are engaged and they have the spirit to, of teamwork?
Well, I was thinking about this question, funny enough, a couple of weeks ago, and I think above, because we're working remotely, we need to be better at leadership skills.
Right.
So what we might have got away with on the day to day, we're distilled in our communication with people. So it's about great communication, but it's all great communication isn't talking. Great communication is also about listening.
Right.
So, and it's not just about the work; it's about the human being. So finding ways to engage your team, actually having some fun. The workspace at this moment in time, yes, there will be work to be carried out, but having quizzes, having team events online in the evening, or just connecting with people and just
Yeah.
finding out how they are in their lives, that actually fosters a culture. And culture is actually what's the change that's going on now is actually largely is the culture's changed. The
Yeah.
culture's changed because it's been distilled into one space. So leadership needs to step in to embrace and actually adapt the culture that's currently being experienced by people in the workplace. And I'm seeing some fantastic work in that area, but I'm also seeing some concern. I am concerned that some people are being left. They're not really getting a lot of communication, and they're, the vacuum that's actually sort of breeding confusion and uncertainty. And some people will probably move on after this into other employment. So
Right.
communication, I'd say, is the biggest thing. The other thing is actually about engaging people in the future. People need certainty now more than ever,
Yeah.
and it's actually our largest human need. So communication and actually decision making and actually clarity of decision making are massively important for leadership. Whatever is going on, be honest. Be honest with your team and actually sort of let them know, because actually they might come up with some of the solutions to the problems. There's another challenge going on. I heard recently that we have 10,000 baby boomers who are retiring every day at the
Yeah.
moment across the world. So there's a lot of leadership experience retiring or moving away from the workspace. So there is a need for us to adapt and develop depth in our leadership. And so it's not just about being leaders, it's actually teaching people to be leaders as well and building strength in your team. I know that that the top CEOs in the world are concerned about middle leadership, because that's
Yeah.
actually where things get done. So strategic leadership is fantastic. We've got some fantastic opportunities coming through in new technologies and new ways of working. But actually, it's in middle leadership we need to build strength. And one of the programs that in Marshall Goldsmith is a team program, and that's actually about individuals' values and then putting them together alongside the business values, and from that putting them the hard and soft
Yeah.
tasks for the organisation together as a team, as one team, and actually sort of working with those teams going forward up on a monthly basis. So the culture is actually important, and actually the investment in culture now isn't it can't take 5 years. Some businesses won't survive that. So
Yeah.
you need to embrace and get teams, as they're coming back, performing at a higher level, and perhaps some of those team members are not coming back. So you need to get over the remorse that's or loss that can be felt in an organisation for some time when they've actually had to remove some of the workforce. So it's about having clear strategic plans, but also engaging people now.
Yeah. So, the next question that I would like to ask you is, what are the most important qualities expected from an executive leader, like during these times of the like the pandemic which is going on?
I think values are actually incredibly important. I think you'll have seen worldwide how people's values have been exposed in this pandemic and how people have managed things. So that is, I would say, a strong set of values and demonstrated not just by their words, but actually in their deeds.
Yeah.
Um, the psychological need for certainty within an organization. And I would also say inspiring people to want to a new future. So focusing on the future from a positive point of view, recognizing that everything isn't going to be the same, but looking at the opportunities that are coming from that as well. Um, communication I've mentioned already, but the more communication that's going down throughout the organisation to everybody is important. And yeah, it's setting the new vision. It's setting a new course.
Yeah.
If you're in stormy waters, you want someone on the wheels of the boat. You want them actually sort of knowing where that they're with certainty where they want to take you. And above that is actually having a team around them that that are listened to.
Right. So that coordination is also supposed to be there. The obedience, the also teamwork, the communication. So it's also about the people, it's also about the objective. So that needs to be balanced out completely.
Absolutely. And one last thing, and probably it could even be the most important. The person closest to your customer needs to be listened to. So in a retail organization, the people that are working on the shop floor, but the people who are talking to your customers need to be listened to within an organization. In actual fact, leaders need to be listening, talking to customers as well. So it's not so as they're adapting, as their challenges are being dealt with. If they're aware of them, if they will be able to make the changes that are right. So it's managing by walking around, as Harvey Jones used to say in the 70s. But actually, it's just getting out there and talking to your customers and getting to know what they want. I'm sure you've seen the Undercover Boss program and the revelations that come from when bosses put on a disguise and go and actually talk to their customers.
Yeah.
When they go back to the board, there's transformation. Well, actually, it's never been more important than now to actually be listening to what your customers are saying.
Yeah, I completely agree with your answer about this, that you need to know what's going on completely throughout, even if it's the smallest thing.
Yeah.
So, just to wrap up this interview, the last question that I would like to, do you have any important sound bites that you would like to leave me or the audience with?
Yes. Leading change has never been more important than it is right now.
Yeah.
So invest in yourself and your leadership, because the leadership that you are demonstrating right now will have a big impact on the team that work for you for years to come. So investing in yourself and actually sort of reaching out for support when you need it, I'd say that, yeah, leadership now is actually hugely needed across the world in all types of organizations and companies as well. Be human to your team, but also be open to being a pioneer.
Yeah.
And actually, these are uncharted waters, so act like pioneer leaders.
Correct.
Think differently. Don't rely on what was good in the past. Be open to what's going to be what needs to be in place in the future. So that flexibility is important, but be determined as well.
Yeah. Right. That is amazing, and I completely enjoyed our conversation throughout the interview. Thank you so much for your time and your views. And this was really an enriching experience for me to learn from you. and I am happy to be able to interview you. So thank you so much for that, and you stay healthy, you stay safe, and we will keep in touch again.
Thank you very much indeed, and I hope something resonated with somebody and actually inspires them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm pretty sure that that has happened, definitely.
Okay, thank you.